They act in the shadows, manipulating history and events to benefit their goals and grow in power. Billionaires? No, cults. Welcome to my empire. Cults have always been used in movies and games to justify people acting weird and evil, and they create clear bad guys, even though they're more often used as generic crazy people than actual groups with goals and perspectives on reality. Cult activity may also be awkward to write about because it can possibly relate to real-world atrocities committed by very real cults. But, if done well, I think they could be one of the most interesting parts of the thing they're in. The appeal of cults for me lies in the fact that from their perspective, everything makes sense. Cultists do not think they're crazy. They just have beliefs that make them act in a way that seems logical and sane to them, but insane and deranged to us. They often worship entities that are very real to the world they inhabit, and act logically according to the god or godly being they know is real. It resembles people from the Middle Ages not being stupider than us, but acting with the knowledge they had at the time. And what I like is seeing cults that represent the best of these ideas while still being, batshit insane, as people say. Today, we will talk about the most interesting, terrifying, and fascinating, in short, my favorite cults in fiction. We'll start with the cult that gave me the idea for this video, the Ratma cult. Ratma is from the movie VHS 94 that came out in 2021. The VHS movies are a series of movies filled with short films from different directors and groups, and this short film is my favorite of them all. There's been cultish behaviors in the movies before, but this definitely takes the cake. The story follows a news anchor reporter and a cameraman going in the sewers to find out the truth behind rumors of a rat person living there. Sadly for them, they find it. They are then splashed with the black goo fluids of this half rat, half person, half nightmare, and either melt slowly and painfully on the spot, or absorb the fluids and become part of the cult. I like Ratma mainly because of the short length yet great build-up, one of the most impressive monster designs I've seen, and the fact that people I recognize from the town are in it, which reinforces one of my favorite aspects of a cult, that anyone can be in it. So it makes you doubt who you can trust and who is secretly a cultist. The Vita Carnis cult is one of my favorites because of how deeply they are embedded in society at large, and how creative the series gets with its monsters. Vita Carnis is an analog horror series about meat monsters that one day appeared in the world, some deadly and some useful. We are told that they just appeared one day, but we get hints throughout the videos that they are probably the spawn of a godlike creature from outer space that came to Earth a long time ago and only recently woke up from its slumber. The series has a video for every creature in the series, made like government tapes to warn people of the potential dangers of each creature and how to survive those who actively harm humans. But some advice feels off. First, it's very clear that we have a lot of things we don't know about the creatures, and that they are still a mystery. But even with that in mind, some advice just doesn't make sense and is straight up contradicting of previous advice. For example, one of the creatures is called a mimic, and it specifically hunts humans. It has super tough skin and can resist most weapons, so the video tells us not to attack it with them, but only use our weapons to defend. It's a bit weird because it's clear humans will not be able to defend against a mimic that is much faster, stronger and tougher. And the better option might be to just try to hit the mimic, not to hurt, but at least slow it down and maybe intimidate it. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Then after you finish watching the videos about the creatures, you see other videos on the channel. One is about the corporations selling their flavor enhancer, which is an orange powder that can be put on any food. But why are the people preparing it in the commercial wearing hazmat suits? And why do they say to add the flavor enhancer after your dish cools to at least 60 degrees Celsius? That's too specific of a number. So you look it up and learn that apparently 60 degrees Celsius is the hottest point at which bacteria can multiply rapidly. Then you remember one of the creatures had orange spores that could mind control people. And it clicks. The flavor enhancer is probably just spores. Then you remember the video about the mimics said that if mimics ate enough humans, they would resemble humans so much they would be indistinguishable from them. Oh no. None of this is told to you, and it's stuff you realize and piece together on your own, and it makes the realization even more impacting. The cult itself has existed for many generations and has had time to very deeply embed itself in society, even before mimics came along and started to act like humans, and currently occupies a lot of the positions in high authority, power and influence in the world, all in the goal of making their god happy and spread its influence. So for all the incredibly set up monster ideas that the Vita Carnis series shows, it is for me one of the best horror series you could watch, and I'd love to talk about it more in a future video. New Gods in Fear and Hunger, as I mentioned in my video about the god of fear and hunger down in the description, are a cult of minor gods that ascended from humanhood and are more powerful than humans but incomparably weaker to the higher and older gods in their universe. They are also the only gods that still care about humanity, since almost all old gods have stopped trying to actively influence humanity. Even though new gods are never near as impressive as they want you to believe, they are still gods and are in a way immortal. When the era of a new god comes to an end by the hands of another party or even themselves, their souls go to the Great Hall. The Great Hall is sometimes called the Hall of Gods, and is a different plane of existence that looks like a dining hall where all new gods that have lived through all of history reside. But you'll tell me, that's cool and all, but what does it have to do with cults? Well, ask yourself this. How do we, as players, even know of the existence of the Great Hall? In the second game, we learned that they've been using their power to influence people of great power to act in ways desirable to them, and were supposedly even greatly responsible for causing 2 separate world wars that have caused immense casualty to the world of fear and hunger. The goals of the new gods vary a lot, so they aren't a cult that works together towards an end goal. New gods all have their own motivations and goals. They are all still pretty close to their humanity, so they generally want what is best for humanity. But they all have their different and sometimes disturbed ways of getting to that goal. Some think being completely independent from the old gods at any cost is the most important goal to achieve. Others think that humanity can only strengthen through suffering and pain. Others think that the pursuit of knowledge at the cost of disregarding morals is the way to go. In the end, we know very little on how they influence the world, or which of their choices get priority, except that they probably just summon important leaders to their dimension and convince or maybe intimidate them. The new gods in Fear and Hunger are more considered as a secret society that influence the world from the shadows than a cult. The ancient god cult from Cabin in the Woods is the funniest of them all. Cabin in the Woods is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The movie itself is a horror movie that also parodies horror movie tropes, like the group of friends that always has the stoner, the nerd, the jock, the promiscuous, and the innocent, or how they always ignore all the signs of something going wrong, and always make some sort of stupid, easily avoidable mistake by saying that there's a cult that orchestrates everything. The cult influences people throughout their lives to change their personality towards one characteristic, and then bring them together and very meticulously guide them to the place they have laid traps in. They do all this to entertain ancient gods that demand a ritual to entertain and satisfy them. The ritual needs to have no direct interference from the cult and needs to be the consequence of the victim's actions. That is why the cult cannot directly sacrifice them to the gods, but not willing to take any chances and anger the ancient gods, they manipulate people as much as possible to force them to make bad decisions that will get them and their friends killed to satisfy the gods' desire.
We gotta play it safe. No matter what happens, we have to stay together. This isn't right. This isn't right. We should split up.
The thing that makes this pretty innovative and kinda funny is that the cult has been around so long that it basically became a company. They organize multiple games around the world that each have their branches. They set up traps and drugs throughout their locations to make it easier for the victims to succumb to their fates. And since they've been doing this once a year since almost forever, there's a lot of people who've been working there all their lives and treat their actions as an office job, and even make a game of betting which of the possible monster summoning items will be used by the victims. The cult from the 2017 movie The Ritual isn't why I chose them. I chose them because of the god they worship. But there's one thing of note to know about the cult as well. It is the first isolated cult in the video. You see, for me there are 2 main categories of cults. Either hiding in plain sight and in high society, or completely isolated from society, living as a primitive tribe. All of the other cults in this video were blending in society and acting in the shadows, but this cult lives in the forest that belongs to their god as an isolated tribe. The people of the cult don't really interact with the people outside unless their god lets people in. The god they worship has one of the most incredible and majestic looking designs I've ever seen. The god resembles a deer in the general shape, but oh so very wrong. I honestly don't have the words to really describe it. It looks wrong, out of place in reality, as if a being that doesn't understand how a deer works tried to mimic it. Simply put, it looks Lovecraftian. It reigns over a part of an isolated forest. Anyone who gets in this territory is never allowed to leave unless the god permits it. It has the ability to show you your traumas and regrets, and probably can read your thoughts and see inside your memories. It chooses who will join the cult and who will sacrifice in its name. This cult is unique in that they live with the god they worship, and the god decides directly from them. The Ratma cult just found anyone they could offer to their god. The Vita Carnis cult mostly guesses what the god wants and propagates its creation. The Fear and Hunger cult is literally composed of dozens, if not hundreds of demigods, collectively influencing the world. But here, the worshippers have no control over what the god decides and just follow him without thought. The subject of God has always fascinated me. How one god wants to be obeyed to the letter, but another one relies on chance and its followers to bring it offerings. Or how some may form a following in one small location, but others influence people all over the world to do their bidding. Or how some are just worshipped just for existing and don't really care about it. It is interesting to see different gods be worshipped in different ways, depending on their circumstances. The cults that worship them have to adapt to their environments and obstacles the best they can to get the outcome they want, which makes it all the more interesting to try to understand them. I had a lot of fun making this video and already have ideas for the second video, so let me know if you have any recommendations. Like and subscribe. This has been WellFell. Have a good night.